I'm not really sure Thomas Tuchel has a handle, particularly over his front line, but certainly his best 11. What do you think, James?
Well, I've got a couple of questions with this one. When it comes to Thomas Tuchel, first of all, does he care about his sort of starting 11 or his best 11? Because in terms of his management for the team over the last year, I think he's been a manager 382 days so far.
You think?
He's been, I think, yeah, around that number. I did my research, guys. He's picked the team that based on the opposition a lot of the time. I think that's been the case, and but that is also holding them back a little bit. So I'd be intrigued to know if Tuchel cares about that first 11. But when you do look at the squad, it is the rough and tumble of Chelsea. But if you also look at Liverpool and Man City, I think to a point, there's a bit more consistency with their starting 11s. And if you want to kind of get into that area where you're winning Premier Leagues instead of falling away like they have done so far, winning the Champions League and winning the World Club Cup is lovely. But I think this Chelsea team is built to try and win the Premier League. So there are some huge concerns and question marks littered throughout the team, be it in form with the likes of Werner, Lukaku struggling a little bit this year, and then also contract talks. The likes of Kante's going into his 30s, Jorginho's going into his 30s as well. Kovacic is now in great form, so it looks like he's going to stay. But then Rudiger hasn't signed a new deal yet. Christensen hasn't signed a new deal yet. Azpilicueta hasn't signed a new deal yet. So as much as it's knowing his best 11 now, the question back to you, I guess, Hugh, is, are there concerns that you can't almost put together a best 11 if you don't know what the future looks like?
Well, you need a best 11 for now. I mean, I was going to say, if you're in a cup final tomorrow, who do you play? They are, and that's the question.
Yeah.
But I think the reality for Chelsea is that if you look at the likes of Liverpool and you look at Manchester City, for example, there is constant rotation. You would say that you might be able to think of what their best 11s are, but if they change those players, particularly in the front line, it doesn't seem to affect the team as much. Now, why is that? Well, if you look at Liverpool bringing in Luis Diaz, I mean, in his first few appearances, he looks like he could be a carbon copy of Sadio Mane. That's preparation for the future. It also means if you change your starting lineup, it isn't a huge change to how the team plays. You might think the same about Diogo Jota's influence across that front three. There is a style of play, a pattern of play that doesn't change depending on the personnel, which means that your perceived best 11 can change for any given match and it doesn't affect the team. But when you come to Chelsea's team, there is no carbon copy of Romelu Lukaku in that side. He plays in a different style to anyone else in their squad. So when he plays, they are a different team. And he needs to play because he cost a huge amount of money. He's been brought to the club to bring them big trophies. And he's going to be given a chance in that team. But he's not the same sort of player as Timo Werner. When Timo Werner plays, if he's pushed out to the left, who's the carbon copy for him? Maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi, but then he's been playing at wing-back. Where does Christian Pulisic fit in? He's not a carbon copy of Hakim Ziyech. So their forward line in particular is such a collection of different styles of player that when they change their team, their style has to change as a team. And I think that's the difference with Thomas Tuchel.
That's a really good point, Hugh, because I guess that consistency of striker or forward player to have an understanding of what your style of play is going to be important. And someone like Tammy Abraham, who left, Olivier Giroud, of course, left as well, and Lukaku came back. They're left with one player and it was all on his shoulders. And Lukaku, up until this point, has struggled a little bit. What we have seen in the press this week is that there is a buyback clause for Tammy Abraham, 24 years of age, 17 goals in 32 games for Rome this season. He's done really, really well there. I think we always thought that he would do well, allowing himself to be the talisman. I guess two questions here. First of all, would Chelsea want to do this? Is it worth going back for him? 68 million apparently is the number as well, which is pretty punchy. Second question is, if you're Tammy Abraham, do you go back to someone who's rejected you ultimately? What do you think?
Well, the first question on Chelsea, I think he is a player that they would like to have. I know I mentioned a little bit earlier on.
That is mad, isn't it, though, Hugh? They literally let him go. They literally said, you can leave. How can they need him back?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they didn't think he would have the impact that he's had at Roma, wouldn't be scoring as many goals. He had an opportunity in their first team. I think that is something to point out. They did give Tammy Abraham an opportunity at the club. Before Romelu Lukaku came in, he was under Frank Lampard, remember, their top scorer in one season, but he never really proved to be an elite Premier League striker. And that is what you expect Chelsea to need if they're going to win a title. Hence, they bring in someone like Lukaku. There's support there. There should be support there in terms of goals from all their great attacking players on their day, but those players have not provided consistency, and Thomas Tuchel needs to get the bottom of that, because I think if Tammy Abraham came back to Chelsea, he would be a backup for Romelu Lukaku, and I think he would be an excellent backup. But do you want to spend 68 million on a backup? And does Tammy Abraham in particular want to go back to Chelsea where he's not going to be a regular starter? I think maybe the answer to both of those is no. I think Chelsea can spend their money better elsewhere. I also think Tammy Abraham needed to find a home in football where he would be loved. I think that is happening at Roma. Once you're scoring goals, he's returned to the international fold with England as well. Stay where you're happy. And I think he has that support and encouragement from Jose Mourinho. I don't know how long he'll be at Roma, but I think at the moment, when everything's happy in your career and you're a young player who needs to have that long period of consistency and settled football and happiness in the game, then why change? Why fix what isn't broken? So I think Tammy Abraham stays where he is. But you're right, it is a sad indictment on Chelsea that he's a player they could do with right now. Chelsea taking on Palmeiras is a very important game, I think. Tell me, James, how much does it matter?
It is a vanity tournament for Chelsea. I don't think there's a true desire, apart from the certificate, the ultimate certificate of suggesting that you are the best team in the world. So I struggle with it because I'll be honest, in my guide, it's not there. I don't care, if I'm honest, but everyone's there and they might as well play the game. So good luck to them.
I think it does matter to Thomas Tuchel. I think the way that Chelsea's season has gone so far, he needs a boost at this point in time. And I think to go and pick this trophy up and bring it back and say to the fans, we're the best team in the world. I mean, it gives you some brownie points, if you like. The rest of the season, he needs something in the cup competitions. Of course, the FA Cup, the Champions League, he needs to lay down a marker there. I think Chelsea fans expect to get to the last four of the FA Cup pretty much every season. The Champions League, having won it last year, I just think they want to see again. It's very difficult to go back to back, but I think given how the league form has gone recently, they want to see their side back in probably the last four of that competition as well. And I know they've got a good draw, but I do think his future is in the balance here, because if these three competitions, including the Club World Cup final, go badly, imagine he loses the Club World Cup final, doesn't get far in the FA Cup or the Champions League, finishes third in the Premier League, way behind Manchester City, I think, but maybe Liverpool, in a season where it was predicted Chelsea would challenge once again for the Premier League title and be right there, and maybe for many the favourites, and win that, to come back with possibly nothing at all this season. We all know how Roman Abramovich treats his managers. That could be curtains for Thomas Tuchel's time at the club. But to win this trophy, I think is massive. I know they got the Super Cup as well, but I think it is important to say, look, we proved that we're the best team in the world, and there's more to come. Interestingly, Lukaku scored in that semi-final. It's a big moment for him as well. If he gets that moment of glory, it's another big suggestion to the Chelsea fans, who of course have been on his back at times this season, especially over that interview with Sky in Italy, that he is there for the long haul, and there will be more special moments at the club. So I think it is huge for those two individuals in particular. Hi, I'm Hugh Wisencroft from ESPN's Football Forecast. Make sure you're subscribed. You can follow all of our predictions throughout the season and get some other great analysis from our big names as well.